Yesterday I changed my class to Blood Knight, and today I'm going to share my new open world farm build for it. This one is not as fast as Barbarian, but it is way more chill to play with because basically you just move around and all the monsters around and behind you die thanks to the skills we are using. Another good thing about this build is that it is really good for low resonance as well. You don't really need specific legendary gems or awakened spots. Any Blood Knight player can use this build and have fun with it. Now let's talk about the skills and essences we are using. Our first skill is Whirling Strike with the main hand essence called Indulgent Calligrapher. This is one of our damage and movement abilities. Whirling Strike now causes you to dash forward, dealing damage and knocking back enemies in your path while also applying a bleed that can stack up to 2 times. Whirling Strike can be activated again up to 2 additional times, with the final strike hitting all nearby enemies and knocking them airborne. And our next skill is what makes this build pretty good for every Blood Knight player. Of course, I'm talking about Swarm of Bats. We are using 2 different essences for this one. The first one is a Shoulders essence called Flagellant Spines. Swarm of Bats now consumes 2.5% of your maximum life per second to sustain the swarm. It will pursue enemies and deal damage per second. The swarm is dismissed by activating the skill again or when your life falls below 20% of maximum. You don't have to worry about your life falling too low because another skill we use solves that problem. Basically, you have 100% uptime on this skill, which makes it very easy to use. And we are using a chest essence called Teeming Grotto. Swarm of Bats also destroys enemy armor, increasing the damage they take by 19% for 3 seconds. And next we have the skill that solves our life issues, Mephitic Cloud. Thanks to the helmet essence we are using, Mephitic Cloud now follows us for 6 seconds, dealing damage to nearby enemies and recovering life equal to 5% of the damage dealt. So like I said, we always run around with our maximum life because the Pants essence we use increases the duration of Mephitic Cloud by 39%, and we have 100% uptime on this skill as well. You just have to activate the skill when it runs out. And lastly, we have Sanguinet without any essences. I'm using this to move between packs of monsters a little bit faster. As always, we have Shadow's Edge as our primary attack skill with 3 different essences. We don't really use our primary attack, but when you have to kill red ones, it becomes useful. So 2 of these essences are offhands. One of them is called Mooncall. Shadow's Edge also increases your primary attack speed by 10% for 2 seconds for each enemy hit, stacking up to 3 times. And the other one is Hanging Chalice. After Shadow's Edge hits an enemy, 2 blades ricochet out randomly, targeting nearby enemies and dealing damage to them. Finally, we have a main hand which increases Shadow's Edge damage by 38%. And that's all the skills and essences we are using. Actually, let me show you the essences all together so you can easily copy the setup. For the helmet, we have Blood Feast. For the chest, we are using Teeming Grotto. On the shoulders, we have Flagellant Spines. For the pants, we have Leonore's Misgivings. For the main hands, we have Cruel Vendetta and Indulgent Calligrapher. And for the offhands, we are using Mooncall and Hanging Chalice. Now let's talk about set items. I used 6 pieces of Banquet of Eyes and 2 pieces of Grace in the gameplay clip you saw at the beginning of the video. But that's not the best option. I advise you to use 4 pieces of Enkman's Conflagration and 4 pieces of Grace of the Flagellant. That way you will have a more consistent damage output and the monsters will die even after you move past them. If you think your account is strong enough, you can use set items like Isatar and Windloft instead of Grace to have more movement speed. Well, we talked about everything you need to know about this build. I'm not going to give any legendary gem advice because you don't need a specific setup to make this build work. But gems like Pain Clasp and Void Spark definitely work well with this build. Other than that, you can use whatever Paragon tree you prefer, but if you are behind on your gear levels, you might want to use Treasure Hunter for an extra little bit of dust and scraps. If you have questions or suggestions about the build, let me know in the comments section. Thanks for tuning in and take care.